Committee. The Chair, Tanaka Vercher, could not be here today. She's out of town. We are here for the Metro Public Schools second day of budget hearings. I have Anna Shepard, board member, with us, and I think she's going to introduce who's with us, and then we're going to open it up for questions for members of the council. So, Ms. Shepard, it's all up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Roten. And before I introduce my guests here, I just want to re-emphasize the one-pager that we handed out along with the budget document last Thursday. The 5 areas of importance for us: the employee compensation, textbooks, the hourly increase and bonuses for our bus drivers and monitors, our human resources and IT upgrades, our social and emotional learning supports, and our pre-K preservation. Those are the things that we have given a lot of thought and a lot of work around. We have weekly budget and finance meetings until we come present the budget to you. So I would really appreciate your serious consideration of our budget proposals that we made last week. And so at this time, I will introduce to us our Director of Schools, Dr. Adrian Battle, and our Chief Operating Officer, Chris Henson.
Oh, sorry.
Testing. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Shepard, for the introduction. Thank you all for having us back again today. We appreciate your support and continued support as we move forward, as we prepare for serving the students of Nashville. As you all are aware, the school board approved a budget 7 weeks ago on April 9th. We presented copies of the budget at our last hearing. We have also sent responses to many of the questions we received since our last budget hearing until today. We're back today to answer any questions you may have. So Ms. Shepard, myself, and Mr. Henson will be here to answer your questions. And if we don't have the information, we'll be sure to follow up with responses promptly. So at this time, Chris, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Dr. Battle, I'll just reiterate the documents that we distributed at our last hearing on the 16th. Hopefully you have those. We put one in front of each council member's desk, or on each council member's desk. And so those would be the documents that Dr. Battle and Ms. Shepard mentioned, the budget that the school board approved on April 9th, as well as a one-pager front and back that details some of the highlights of our budget proposal. So with that, turn it over for questions.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate everybody coming back again. It gave us all an opportunity to dive in a little bit more. And I know I had the opportunity on, I guess it was last Thursday, to sit down with school board member Buggs for about 3.5 hours to go through things and look at different opportunities. She came away with a list of questions that she, I believe, shared with Mr. North. And I think I've just gotten some of those answers here, but just for the viewing audience, if it would be okay, Chair, for Mr. North to come up and share the answers to those questions, unless you have them, Chris.
I think I have the ones that we were able to answer at this point, so if you want to ask them, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Okay, that'd be great. All right. What do the custodians make?
And Mark did stand up. Of course, our custodians are contracted through ABM, is the name of the company, formerly GCA, and they have a range of hourly wages that they pay. I believe the average is $12 per hour. Mark, give me a nod.
That's right.
$12 per hour, and they pay a wage based upon how difficult it is for them to hire employees in certain parts of the city. And I know based upon our last meeting that we had, they indicated that the southwest part of the city was very difficult, and so they do pay a higher wage for custodians in that part of the city. But their pay rates vary, but the average, I believe, is $12 per hour. Mark, do you want to add anything to that?
According to what we received from ABM, the average is the pay range is from $10 an hour to $18 an hour, and the average is right around $12 an hour.
And so is any of that based on longevity or tenure, or is it all based on difficulty to hire? And if so, I'd be curious to know where the $10 employees are working.
Since they hire these employees, I'm not sure. And so we would need to ask them since they're their employees. I do know they do provide additional increases based upon experience levels, years of experience, et cetera. But other than that, we would need to ask them since we don't employ them.
Okay, thank you. How many employees fall under that contract?
And I'll ask Mr. North. I think he's got a number of
Mark, why don't you
positions.
just run through those questions?
I'll run through the questions, okay? Approximately 675 to 680 if they're fully staffed. The next question is the contract with GCA, now ABM, sole source? No, it was competitively bid, and that contract expires June 30 of 2020. The next question that I have the answer to here is, what is the increase in CTE supervision and management? Is this contracted, and what do the 3 employees do? There is no increase in the CTE positions in the board-approved budget. The 3 positions in that area are 2 CTE coordinators, and they support, I'll just read the answer. They support all CTE teachers, provide professional development, ensure CTE curriculum and equipment is in place, as well as managing all CTE-related EPSOs of CTE pathway, dual credit, and industry certifications. Both employees are located at central office but are in schools daily. 1 CTE program manager does all the financial monitoring and transactions for both CTE and Academies of Nashville. That position processes, monitors, and manages all funds related to CTE and Academies of Nashville, including local funds, federal funds, and grants.
Just for the viewers, can you please describe what CTE is?
That is career and technical education.
Thank you.
The next question is about, is a follow-up to some of the comments from the last hearing, which was it would cost $5.2 million for each employee to make $15 per hour, and that would impact 1,656 employees. Please verify this. That is verified. Based on current rates and including all district employees whose salary is less than $15 an hour, and that's as of April 30. The annualized incremental cost, including benefits, Medicare, FICA, to bring salaries to $15 an hour is $5,220.75. The number of employees impacted is 1,656, and that includes board members and substitute teachers, excludes.
That's $5.22 million.
Correct, 5.22 million. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. $5,220,746. I'm sorry.
It's just zeros.
I just missed some, I missed some zeros. I'm sorry, I put the decimal at the wrong place. I apologize. If you take into account a 3% COLA that's in the mayor's proposed budget, the cost to bring the employees up to $15 an hour is $5.199 million, and would impact 1,577 employees. The next question is, who is eligible for a step increase? The short answer is all qualified employees who are qualified to receive a step increase, and really it's each position has a step increase based on the pay scale and depending on the years of service, except the director of schools, the chiefs, and executive officers. And the pay scales are available, and in the email I sent Councilmember Weiner is a link to those pay scales. The next question is, if we look at a $15 minimum per hour, what would that increase percentage be? So what would the increase in pay be for those employees? And I got a subsequent note to answer what that average would be for those employees, and it's 15.4% would be the average range. But the answer here is depends on the employee pay grade, because there are several pay grades. For example, it would be a 36% increase for someone on the bottom of the pay scale who is making $11.02 an hour. A paraprofessional starts at $14.38 an hour. It would be a 4.31 increase for them to reach 15 per hour. There is the other question is who is impacted by the $15 minimum increase and how many employees. We sort of answered the how many employees before. There is an answer that was sent to all of the council members in response to, I believe, Council Member Porterfield's question that lists a number of employees. You should have received that last week. If you want me to read it, I can. But I believe all of you, and it goes through the pay scale and how many employees are approximately how many employees are at those pay scales that have starting pay less than $15 an hour.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mark. I don't have any other questions at this point.
Thank you, Councilmember Weiner. Thank you, Mark, for answering those questions for us. Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I really only have two simple questions. I think Council Lady Weiner got several questions answered. One thing that was said at the last meeting with regards to, and I think Ms. Shepherd, you were the one who said it, was that it was okay if in order to raise the taxes on folks here. I want to go back through to make sure I completely understood what you were saying, and then I wanted to ask you, this is the first question. Has the school board looked at the taxing authority that they have and what they can do in order to make the case to the public?
We have talked about that briefly. It's been a year or so ago that before we talked about it. Since we've talked about it, we haven't really given it any serious discussion. However, we are primarily, well, this is Anna speaking, primarily waiting for council to take action during this budget season before we have any further talks around that line.
Okay. Well, I mean, from my standpoint, and look, I always tell you exactly what I think, and I don't mince my words. For me, it's almost impossible to go out and ask people to give us more money when we've gotten almost $400 million in additional revenue over the last few years. And for me, I think we have not put our priorities where they needed to be. Of course, I was one person here, not a multitude. And so I think that for myself, that's a hard challenge and a very large pill to swallow. The second question. Have you guys gone through, and I guess this kind of popped up when you said, and Mr. Henson, I don't remember the new company name of GCA, but the contract ends 2020 with what I'm going to call GCA because I don't remember the new company's name. What is the thought there? Is it do away with it? Is it continue with them or a different organization? Or and here's the real question. Has it been a cost savings that was anticipated? And, have we been able to push more money into the classroom with that particular move?
Yeah, the company name is ABM.
ABM, okay,
and,
thank you.
The Metro Office of Internal Audit conducted an audit several years ago to review whether or not the district was able to achieve savings or achieve the amount of savings that we had indicated back when custodial and ground services were contracted. And if you go back, and that audit is still on the Metro Office of Internal Audit website, that link, if you go back and look at it, the answer is yes, we were able to achieve significant savings. I think at the time it was around $6 million or so of savings by doing that. As far as the process moving forward, this is the end of a second 5-year contract with GCA ABM. And so the plan would be, just like it would any other contract, we would put it back out as a request for proposal to see what kind of proposals we receive back from anyone who wants to bid or to present a proposal on it. We've also internally over some time looked at what might it look like if we were to try to bring these services back in-house, and it's a very expensive proposition. We're estimating somewhere in the neighborhood of around $10 million to do that, based upon the wages that we would pay, based upon the benefit packages that we offer our employees, and also based upon the fact that we would have to buy all new equipment because we don't own any custodial equipment, et cetera. And so that would be a very expensive proposition, but we have considered it and we have looked at it. But the plan right now would be sometime in the fall to put that request for proposal out and to try to have a decision made in the spring so that we know who our contractor will be moving into the summertime.
Okay, and so the follow-up question, and then I think I've asked what I was interested in. Has the board gone through all the other divisions, departments, whatever you want to call it, within the system, and looked at everything of individuals where it's not necessarily touching the classroom, and where there could be savings and pretty significant savings as far as being able to try and push that money into the classrooms? Because you also know what my position is on that. I believe that we absolutely have to pay our teachers. I believe that we absolutely have to put education as one of our top priorities. But I think it's also our responsibility as the stewards of the money to make sure that we're being good stewards of that money and we're pushing as much as we can into the classroom. So as that, I know last year I spoke with then director and basically was told no, and I'll let it go because let's face it, on this floor we don't control any of that. But has that been considered at all in this season?
And so we have begun, speaking of the contracts, like you say, don't, touch the child. In fact, we have scheduled a retreat for, I believe it's June 21st, just to discuss that topic, just to make sure that we are as lean as we need to be, especially around contracts that are not, providing a direct service to the students in the classrooms.
And do you have any idea yet what kind of cost savings that may be a potential?
We've just started those conversations, so no, I don't.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Chair.
But I will say, as part of our budget development process, that is part of what we do. We
Okay.
look at where can we make any reductions, particularly administratively, so we can put more money into schools. And if there's a graph, I think, that we provided regarding the amount that we push out to schools, a percentage of our budget compared to peer districts and other like-sized districts, and we do, I think, a good job of putting as much as we can out to schools so that principals and school leadership teams have control over how much, not how much, but how they want to split up the dollars that they're allocated based upon the goals and objectives in their school improvement plans, what their needs are. And so that is a part of our budget development process. And then, as Ms. Shepherd said, we're just taking it a step further, going back and looking at it again to see if there are any areas where we can continue to make reductions. We did make significant reductions in the current fiscal year budget when we had to go back and make $15 million in reductions, and we reduced contracts by, I think, around $3.3 million for this year. We reduced travel costs by almost $800,000. So we went through that process to make the current year budget balance, and we also went through that process as we developed next year's budget.
Okay. Is that, I think what you're talking about is the site-based budgeting. Is that, am I remembering the name correctly?
Student-based budgeting.
Student-based, okay. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Councilmember Lee, looking a lot like Councilmember Bedney out there. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if somebody asked this question before. I was curious about vouchers. Have you guys went over vouchers already? So I'm really worried about the impact, the fiscal impact this will have in our budget here in Nashville. Mostly this anti-immigrant policy of not agreeing to share the vouchers with people whose parents may not have a social security number. So we are creating a situation where U.S. citizens born here that are going to school because their parents may not have a social, they may not qualify for that. So it will actually create a concentration of a population in the school system, while some of the people that are going to the school system may be leaving it for the private sector. So I wonder if you have analyzed the fiscal impact of this. I mean, we already saw a fiscal impact last budget when the anti-immigrant policies of the state caused that many of the students left the school system, and we saw a decrease in the contribution we got from the state on the school system. So I was just wondering if you have run through that and see how much will this pie-in-the-sky policies that the state implemented is impacting the city.
Sure, I'll attempt to answer that. The voucher program, I believe, is scheduled to go into effect in 2 years, in 2021. We're still trying to seek guidance as it relates to what exactly that looks like for us and for Shelby County as far as any potential state reimbursement for students who decide to take advantage of the voucher program. We don't have solid answers yet at this point. We assume we will as we move forward and as they move forward. But there will definitely be a fiscal impact on Davidson County and on Shelby County as that program continues to move forward. If for no other reason, and every other school district in Tennessee, if for no other reason, there will be fewer state dollars that will be allocated through the state's funding formula, the BEP, because those dollars will now be geared toward the voucher program. And so when you look at it from that perspective, there will be fewer state dollars for education for everybody. And then depending upon how the state handles students from Davidson and Shelby counties, how they handle when those students go to a private school, what kind of reimbursement the district gets and for how long that reimbursement might take place. And I've seen varying information on that, so we're still seeking guidance.
And usually when you create a zoning plan for the district, you're looking years ahead, right? So you can't just wait till that voucher thing comes up full operational to start thinking how you're going to have to move students around the city. And so what type, are you doing any preparations? I mean, I know this is going to end up costing us money probably today. So what type of preparations are you taking to get ahead of that crisis that is looming in the horizon?
Well, there's really no way to know where those students currently live and where they go to school, whether or not they're going to attend a private school, and so it's very difficult to try to make that kind of a projection at this point. We know that it's going to have an impact, but as far as which schools might be affected the most, at this point, there's just really no way for us to know.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Bedney. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Chair Roden. So there were so many good questions. My head was just kind of spinning to beginning to where to start. I think I wanted to pick up though where Councilmember Glover was, and this is the question for you. So you were saying that when we outsource our cleaning, it's $10 million. It would be $10 million if we would absorb that cost. Is that? I want to make sure I understand that correctly.
If we were to consider bringing that service back in-house where we hired our own employees and we had the number of employees that we need with the wage that we would pay, with the benefit package that we offer, and with the purchase of custodial equipment, custodial supplies, et cetera, our estimate is about a $10 million increase over what we're currently paying.
Okay, and so $10 million increase, what are you currently paying now?
I can look it up.
Okay. And then I wanted to know, how do y'all evaluate the services you have now versus bringing it in-house? Like, how do you evaluate the whole package of contracting out versus opting to keep in? Like the quality, so.
We have a process in place where each of our schools is asked to complete what's called a report card on a monthly basis to reflect their satisfaction and to provide any feedback or input as it relates to areas that's going very well or areas that need improvement. And those are all accumulated and reviewed on a monthly and quarterly basis with the contractor, with ABM, to evaluate their work. So that's the process that's
And so do you have a point where, or how is the feedback? And do you have a point where you have a particular threshold where you say it's met this threshold, we maybe need to look at bringing it in? Or is it just feedback? Is it on some type of rubric or scale?
There's not necessarily a hard and fast line. Of course, if we were to consider it bringing back in, we would need to consider requesting an additional $10 million as well. And so that's always another factor to consider. But that's the reason that we only have a 5-year contract, so that if we're not satisfied, then we can make a change. But there's a lot of upfront cost to any company. We have almost 15 million square feet to clean and over 2,000 acres to cut. And so it's a big operation, but we do evaluate it. The answer to your question relating to the contract is next year's contract is $22.3 million.
Okay, so then it would be $33.3 million if you were to take it in-house, because you said it would increase $10 million.
That's our estimate, yes.
Okay, and then, so are you pleased with the services now that they're providing, this company?
We're generally pleased. We have some schools that have struggled, and mainly because of the just employment environment in Davidson County and in Nashville. ABM is having trouble, just like everybody else, employing enough people, particularly at that type of position, just like we are as a school district. We're having difficulty employing people, bus drivers, other positions that may be lower on the pay scale. But there are also some schools who are very, very pleased with the service that's being provided. And so overall, I would say that we're fairly pleased. We're not ecstatic, but we're not dissatisfied either. And that will all be taken into consideration when we put the request for proposal out in the winter and the spring, when we evaluate what kind of proposals we receive.
Okay, and do you also take into account, does the contracting company provide insurance? Do you know if they provide insurance for their?
They do
okay.
Provide benefits, yes,
okay.
and it varies.
Okay, so, okay, yeah, I guess that's all I was just saying. Do we look at the total picture? Because sometimes if employees don't have insurance, they still maybe use resources in our city that would still drain it, that would take a part of the overall cost. But definitely, thank you for those answering those questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilmore. Councilmember Cooper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Always great to have experts here. And if you didn't mind, for me and for the public, if you would review your HR pay plan studies, how recent they are and some of their conclusions, and what you've been, the studies that you all have been working on over time vis-a-vis compensation, pay, comparable pay in the region, just sort of the state of where your work is currently.
I don't see anyone here from our human resources area, but we are in the midst of a compensation study that we are going to be reviewing and hopefully have that result available in the fairly near future. I know we provided some information through the questions as it relates to teacher salaries as far as comparisons to other Tennessee districts, as well as comparison to some peer districts across the country, to see where we stack up at the beginning level, at the midpoint, and at the top end for bachelor's and for master's degrees. And it's going to vary. We seem to be fairly competitive at the beginning, but then the way that our current teacher salary schedule is structured, teachers don't advance like they should, as quickly as they should, and as quickly as some of our peer districts and other districts in Tennessee do. And so therefore, that's part of the change in the structure for the teacher salary schedule that's needed so that we can be more competitive through the mid-career and the upper years of experience for our teachers.
Thank you. And so the last time there was a step increase for MNPS would have been when?
2017-18, there was a step increase and a 3% raise.
And prior to 17, by the advantage of having experts here.
So there was a step increase in 2016-17 and 2017-18. Obviously, there was no step increase for the current year, 18-19. There was no step increase in 13-14 or 14-15. And then the 4 years prior, there was a step increase. And so it's varied over time, and we've got a document that we'll be happy to share.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cooper. Councilmember Weiner, we're back to you.
Thank you. I just had one more question, kind of a follow-up about the contract reviews that you're going to be doing that weekend in June. Are you going to be doing that in-house when you evaluate them? Are you going to bring in an outside consultant to help you identify criteria by which you're going to judge those contracts?
Councilor Weenie, we will start with an in-house process, and then as we progress and see a need for, other individuals that are probably more well-versed than we are, then we will call in them.
Okay, that'd be great. I was just concerned because there's such a volume
There
of
is.
them that realistically you can only get through so many in that period of time. So
Right.
I was just curious. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Weiner. And we have one more in the queue. Councilmember Gilmore, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Roden. I got so bogged down in the question. I wanted to just do a quick point of privilege and just thank Dr. Battle for all of her hard work and hitting the ground running. I had the opportunity to attend about 12 graduations in the city, and I just really was very pleased with all the hard work that our teachers, not only Dr. Battle, but the teachers, the administrators, and the students. I mean, you can really see a special kind of flavor as you attend each school, and I think no one does it better than we do in Nashville, and I can honestly say that. I was able to see the school where they work with the students with disabilities and the kindness, and then we saw the magnet schools, and then we saw the schools that specialize in the sciences, and so it was just really touching, and just to see all the hard work that the principals put in and that the teachers, and I really do hope that we can find a way to, it's a tough budget year. It was tough last year. But we've received so many emails. I've received so many, I can't even respond. And, all of them kind of say the same thing, help us out, we need help. But we'll do what we can for the teachers. But I just want them to know, the teachers, the staff, just all of the Metropolitan School, that you really do a yeoman's work, and your work is greatly appreciated, and don't think that it's gone unnoticed, and we'll do our best to work hard for you. And it was just really wonderful being able to experience those graduations. And my daughter also graduated from Metropolitan Schools as well, and she came out just fine. She's rocking it out in college. She's got a 3.8, and I graduated from public schools. So we really want to do what we can to keep it going, so we'll try to do our best this year. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Dr. Battle attended 14 graduations.
Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate y'all coming back so we can continue to ask questions. Can you help me understand the numbers under your proposed board budget priorities? You list the items that Board Member Shepherd kind of ran through earlier. Textbooks, the rate increases for drivers and teachers, and those different things. Are those all items that will not be funded if we can't find the revenue to make your budget, or are those things that you'll make sure happens at the cost of something else? How did those numbers get pulled out?
These numbers were pulled out from the board-approved budget from April 9th, and these were based upon the board's budget priorities that they set in a series of retreats, employee compensation being by far the top priority, but you can see some of the others as well. Over on the front page of that same document, if you look at the mayor's budget proposal, in the box to the right there, you can see if that's the amount of funding that we received, we basically would be able to give a 3% raise, and that's all, with no step increase, no $15 per hour minimum for our staff, no money for textbooks, no hourly rate increase for bus drivers and monitors, et cetera, because that's all, unless we were to go back and make other reductions elsewhere within the budget, that's all that funding level would allow us to do.
So what you show here, which also includes social emotional learning, which is something I've been really impressed with in terms of enabling students to be able to learn, and also creating an environment for teachers to have students that are behaving in a more learning fashion. So those are items that would be lost if we can't find the money to make up that difference between those two.
If we were to give the 3% raise with no step increase, that would be accurate unless there were other areas identified to make further reductions and cuts to the existing budget.
Right. And so, so these are, I guess, the things that are listed as things we would do without, because the other things we have less flexibility on. Is that how these were pulled out as the items not to be funded?
No, these were based upon the budget that the board approved on April 9th.
Gotcha.
And these were included in that budget proposal.
Okay.
And so that's why they're listed, because they're the board's budget priorities.
They're their priorities, okay.
Correct. And included in that is, of course, employee compensation, but at a higher percentage plus a step increase than what is in the box, which
Gotcha.
only has the 3% raise with no step increase.
Okay, thank you. I mean, because they all look like important things that we certainly want to work hard to see if we can make some options possible for you. So thanks for identifying those. Appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Anthony Davis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I was thinking about some of the same things and just wondering that as well, so thank you for clarifying that. Obviously, we hope to get you as much money as possible and pushing to get more money to you. If we were able to get more, well, one, I was going to ask, you mentioned some cuts, maybe looking at the contracts, that sort of thing. I was wondering if y'all were kind of coming to the table with that today, but is there anything, if you dug deeper, did you think you could come up with a few million anywhere in savings, or was it you thought that maybe you had to cut something else that you like to get some of these new priorities, or what were you guys' thoughts as you went back after the hearing to today?
Well, as I mentioned, and I'll let Ms. Shepherd speak as well, but as I mentioned, that's part of our budget process as we develop the budget in the winter, is we do go through and look at contracts, contracted services, and other areas, travel, of course, any central office or administrative expense. That's all basically at the beginning of our budget process, and then combining that with the fact that we had to cut $15 million to make this year's budget, this fiscal year's budget balance. 3.3 million of that was contracts, over 700,000 of that was travel. So we've already gone and made the cuts. I'm not going to say we have any that we know we can reduce, but I'm also not going to say we don't have any that we can't, because that is part of our process. And I think what the board wants to do is to go back, relook at some of those, and see if there are some areas where we could possibly make further reductions. But we have done that. And again, I'll let Ms. Shepherd speak for the board.
So as Mr. Henson mentioned, we start this process in the dead of winter. We have retreats and we start placing our priorities. And number one on the list, as you can see, was employee compensation. And as it relates to our teachers, we are asking for a 10% raise, and that was based upon the fact that they had gone without a COLA last year. They had gone without a step increase for several years, and we wanted to make them whole again. They had an increase in their insurance last year, which meant they had a decrease in their take-home pay for many of them. As we heard earlier from Mr. North, we have paraprofessionals that don't even make $15 an hour, and those are a lot of our employees. Our bus drivers and our monitors need to be brought up to scale. We struggle every year with a bus driver shortage, and so I think the last time I looked, we had 21 vacancies in bus drivers. So that means double routes are run. That means kids are late to school or not at school at all. And so, you know, the last time I saw the teacher shortage, it was right at 550 some odd teachers. And that means we have teachers doubling up, we have teachers teaching during planning time, and it's difficult to be effective when you are put under constraints like that. So, you know, we realize that we have got to do a better job in our compensating our employees, and that's why it was number one for us. And then, like I said last week, you know, every kid deserves a textbook. My goodness. I mean, you know I had a textbook. I'm sure you did too. We need to do a better job of providing our children textbooks so they can, you know, have a better learning experience. We are very proud of our pre-K program where, you know, we receive national attention for our pre-K program, you know, every year. And so we wanted to make sure that we preserved those areas that are important to us. And that's where we came up with our priorities.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with all of them as well. And yeah, as I mentioned in the first budget hearing in the 90s at MNPS, we definitely had lots of textbooks, a whole heavy bag full of them. So,
yes.
you know, we had them. That's why it was such a shock to me. So yeah, as I said, we're going to be finalizing this process soon. You know what we've put on the table that's just started to circulate, and, you know, just kind of look forward to hearing if we can't quite get all the way there. I know, you know, if depending on obviously what happens in this chamber, in this body, if we get you a good bit there, you know, you've got a lot more to work with. And so, you know, hopefully that could be done for you guys. So we'll see what happens. And, you know, we support you and we want to get you there. So thank you for being here. Thanks for the extra work session as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, and thank you so much for being here today, MNPS. I did have a clarifying question based on Councilwoman Allen's question. If I heard correctly, did you say that if we do not find additional funding for MNPS, that will cut the SEL budget?
What I said was on the one-pager on the front, in the box to the right, it outlines if we were to receive the mayor's recommended budget amount, and if we were to, as the mayor has suggested, recommended, if we were to provide a 3% raise for all employees, but no step increase, what that might look like. And what we try to do is detail out, we do have some fixed costs that we have to pay, almost $9 million for our charter schools. We've got inflationary increases. We've got the Oracle R12 conversion that we're going through with Metro government. We have the existing pre-K program. All of those things together, and you go down the list, you can see that it basically it does zero out at the bottom. And so if we were to give a 3% raise and no step increase, all other things being the same, there would be no funding remaining to increase funding for social emotional learning. We would still have the existing funding for social emotional learning, but we would not be able to increase the services that we've outlined on the second page as it relates to social and emotional learning, as well as those other things, textbooks, et cetera, that are on that page.
Thank you. And for the purpose of the viewing audience who may not be as familiar with the term social emotional learning, we're speaking of additional supports for students who need support regarding trauma, being experienced to trauma, behavior supports, things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and those things do translate outside of the school system when we're looking at some of the things that a lot of the members in the community have been concerned about with issues like youth violence and things of that nature. The social emotional learning also helps address some of those things that are happening outside of the school. Is that correct?
That's correct. And specifically, we're talking about staffing for 12 of the care centers in our elementary schools and providing specialized supports to support students who have experienced trauma or may have behavior challenges, that we can just put supports and wraparound services in place to ensure their success while they're engaged academically.
Okay, thank you. So this is an investment that will manifest itself outside of the school system as well. Thank you. And then, Ms. Shepherd, a question about, you talked about teacher vacancies, and teachers having to double up. So we're talking about a teacher being absent and a teacher that is present, then taking on their classroom as well as another classroom. looking at potentially having 40 to 60 students in one classroom because we don't have enough teachers. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was clarified for the viewing audience because everyone may not be as well versed in some of the terms and some of the phrases that we're using, so I wanted to make sure that that was clarified. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Porterfield. Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Following up on the very good questions from my colleagues regarding the one-pager. So I'm going to create another hypothetical. If this body were to do something that looks something similar to Councilman Mendez's budget amendment, which I think falls somewhere in the middle of what has been requested versus what has been proposed by the administration's budget, how do you then set priorities within the 6 that you've outlined here?
That would ultimately be a board decision as far as whatever funding amount that we are provided, how that is to be split up. But it would, I'm sure, go along with their stated budget priorities, which would be employee compensation being by far the top priority, but also some of the other things such as textbooks and instructional materials, social emotional learning, preserving the pre-K program. All of those things would be taken into consideration depending upon how much additional funding there was to work with. And I'll let Ms. Shepherd speak further since that would be a board decision.
So we would be basically going back to the drawing board, and I can't imagine that our priorities would change because my colleagues and I were very supportive of these, and we vehemently supported these priorities, and so I'm sure they would not change, but the reality of requested versus received might change up a little bit of where the monies were allocated.
So in essence, if there's an opportunity, I think what I hear you saying is if there's an opportunity to perhaps fully fund some of these priorities, even if they're number 4 instead of number 2, for example, that would be something that the board would look at, is what you're saying.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Thank you, Councilmember Sledge. Councilmember Bedney.
Sorry, Chair, I know we usually don't do this, but I just wanted to recognize the many teachers that are here today, if that's okay with you.
You just did, so it's got to
right.
be okay with me.
Thank you all for the work you do in the school system and for being here today. Thanks.
Thank you for being here, everybody. Seeing no one else in the queue, I want to thank everyone for being here for this. Thank you, members of Metro Nashville Public Schools, and we are adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.